company business. Thank you very much.
Well, welcome back to another Sky Blue History podcast with myself and, of course, our very esteemed club historian, Jim Brown. Good evening, Jim. How are you?
I'm well, thank you, Claudio. Good evening.
Yes, we got everything off our chest earlier. We had a little chat about what's been happening at the club, so we got that out of the way. So we won't bore everybody with that information. I think we all know what's going on. We can see it on the pitch. So we'll move on to the historical stuff, I think. What do you reckon?
Definitely.
I think.
And tonight we're going to talk about a subject that was requested by a Coventry City fan called David Selby. Now, David is an interesting character. He's a City fan, but he lives in Essex, and he doesn't see many City games at all because his other love is actually his bigger love is Chelmsford City, and he's actually a director of Chelmsford City now. I think he's played a number of roles there, secretary and historian, and he's now, I think, a non-executive director of the club. And there is a link with our subject tonight, who, if anybody can recognise the gentleman looking over my shoulder, it's former manager Billy Frith, who was the man who was the manager immediately before the great Jimmy Hill. So David would like us to cover Billy, his playing career and his managerial career. So that's what we're going to talk about.
That sounds like a great subject and a person to talk about, Jim, because obviously he played a big role in our club's history. So where are the roots of Billy Frith? Where does he originate from?
Well, he came from the North Derbyshire. He played his early football with Mansfield and Chesterfield, and he was the son of a former player called Billy Frith, who played for various clubs in the 1920s, including Rotherham and Derby County, I believe, and Coventry City's manager in the early 30s was the famous Harry Storer, and Harry had scouts galore in Derbyshire and the North Midlands area, and he, if there are any good players available, Harry knew about it, and he picked up Billy as a 19-year-old. He'd suffered quite a bad injury with Chesterfield, and he was given a free transfer in the summer of 1932, and he came to Highfield Road, and he scored a goal on his debut against Newport County.
Fantastic.
He was inside left when he first arrived. I suppose an attacking inside forward. His debut was alongside the great Clary Borton, who also scored in the 3-1 win over Newport.
So he arrived at the start of the sort of golden era of the 30s then. Would that be right?
Yes, yeah. 31-2 was Storer's first season. So he arrived, at the end of the first season of the Storer era, just after Clary had knocked in 50 goals in his first season. So he only played 3 games that first season. He played 9 games the following season, including the 9-0 win over Bristol City, which is still the club's highest ever league victory. And it was in 34-5 season where he really became a regular. And by this time, Storer had converted him into a wing half, specifically a right half, an attacking. I guess it would be like a Ben Sheaf type role now. I think Ben Sheaf would have been an attacking wing half in the old days. But he played in a very strong Coventry City side. You know, they finished, I think, sixth, second, third, and first in successive seasons in Division 3 South, and Billy was, you know, part of that strong team alongside, you know, Clary Borton, Leslie Jones, Bill Morgan in goal, and latterly George Mason at centre half, and he was a member of the 35-36 promotion team that got out of Division 3 South. And he played 30-odd games every season up to the Second World War. In total, over 160 games in that period. And when war broke out, he would have been only 27, probably in the prime of his career. So he lost the best years of his career, to be fair, with the war.
Did he join? Did he join the forces then? Did he actually?
No, he didn't, as far as I know, because he was a guest player for. Well, he played for City in the war years, but he was also played as a guest for Leicester City. And if you look at his wartime appearances, he was around most of the time. So I doubt very much whether he was in the services, in the forces. He became, after the war, he became a teacher. So whether he was doing something with teaching during the war, I don't know. I did meet his sister maybe about 20 odd years ago, and his son. And I honestly can't remember whether I even asked them what he did during the war. But the one pre-war quote I've seen about him, and I think David Brassington mentioned this in the Breeden complete record. There was a quote from Storer in those pre-war years. After a particular game, Storer said, "Frith gave the best exhibition of right half play I've ever seen." Well, that was some accolade from a man from Storer who wasn't really used to giving oodles of praise to his players. He normally, gave them a kick up the backside.
So playing in that position, what number would you wear on your shirt? Would it be number 4?
Number four. Yeah. Right half. So, as I said, Ben Sheaf is the modern guy. Terry Yorath would have been a number 4. Ronnie Farmer was a number 4. So it's attacking probably an attacking, a midfield player, central midfield.
Brian Robson.
Yeah.
Up and down.
Yeah. He wasn't a prolific goal scorer, even though he scored in his debut. He didn't score a lot of goals. And another fact that was mentioned in the Breeden book is that, but for an injury, he would have got an unofficial England cap during the war. So he was highly rated in football generally. And of course, those pre-war years, as we talked about before, they were, City were in the second division, finished 4th 2 years running. The old adage, but for the war, City would have been promoted to the first division. So after the war, he decided to take the manager's job at Port Vale, and he managed there in the 45-6 season, and then that was the sort of transition season before league football started to get restarted. But in 46-7, Port Vale had a dreadful start, and after about 15 games, they sacked they sacked poor old Billy, and he wasn't out of the game long. The City manager at the time, a chap called Dick Bayliss, who'd been Storer's number 2 before the war, he was now the manager. He said to Billy, "Come and be my assistant manager, and also I think you're good enough still to be playing." So Billy played 7 games that 46-47 season, and then we had the tragedy of Dick Bayliss, the manager, dying. The only ever City manager to die in post. That was in the April 47. In the summer, the board of directors decided to appoint Billy as the manager. So he was the beneficiary of the sad death of Dick Bayliss.
And how old was Dick, Jim?
Good question. Good question. He died. That was the terrible winter, 1947, when we had snow for weeks and weeks, and the football season dragged on till June because there were no. The government wouldn't allow midweek games. So Dick Bayliss. He was a very good coach. He was a very good assistant manager, maybe a chief scout type character. He was born in 1899, so he was only 48 when he died.
That is young, isn't it? That is really young.
It is. He went on a scouting mission to Scotland, and on the way back, he got stuck in snow. And eventually got dug out and got home, got to his Kenilworth home, but he caught a chill, and he rapidly went downhill and passed away a few days later.
It's amazing how in those days you could die from getting a chill. It just shows how far we've come on with medicine and medical help. That's incredible.
It is. And you know, there was the great Herbert Chapman, who was manager of Arsenal, Huddersfield, and then Arsenal. He died. He caught a chill watching a reserve game, went home to his bed and died. So, you know, as you say, it's incredible that people get a chill and die, isn't it?
It is. I nearly caught a chill at Wickham about 8, 9, was it that 10 years ago? It was -8.
Oh, it wasn't that long ago. It was League Two, wasn't it?
Yeah, was it League Two?
January night game. Yeah, I was there.
Yeah. That was cold. That was cold.
Yeah. McNulty scored a late penalty.
That's it, yeah. Very, very cold night.
Yeah.
We digress. Sorry about that.
Yes. So Billy became the first team manager, and that first season, 47-48, he had a reasonable season. He signed a player called Norman Lockhart, a left winger from it was Northern Ireland international ultimately, and he was a mainstay of City's team for the next 5 or 6 years. He was a great buy, and he also bought Noel Simpson from Forest. But he had an aging team. You know, he had quite a few players who'd been there pre-war, like Alf Wood, Ted Roberts, Harry Barrett, Plum Warner. And as I said, it wasn't a bad season. And he had the great goal scorer, George Lowry, who was sold in the March of that season. For a massive fee, £18,000 club record fee to Newcastle, and the goals dried up with Lowry gone, and they finished 10th. But they went through a bad run. They went through a bad run, no wins in 12, and ended up, as I say, 10th place, which wasn't bad really.
Surely Coventry City weren't selling their best players even back then, were they?
They were, yes, they were.
Yes.
But well, you obviously think it's not a good thing to sell your best players, but
No, but it happens, doesn't it?
it does. Yeah, and he was the first big sale after the war, and yeah, I think they struggled to replace him. And the following season, 48-9, they had a bad start. What I think it was 1 win in 9, a bit like this season.
Yes, it sounds familiar.
Yeah.
And what happened then?
Well, they were 21st in November, early November,
Right.
and he was sacked.
Yeah.
And who came back as manager? Harry Storer. He came back from having gone to Birmingham in 45. He came back as manager and steered them well clear of relegation.
Because by then, had he got promoted with Birmingham and Derby? Harry Storer he
got promotion with Birmingham to the first division, and he stayed with them a couple of years, and he left Birmingham in the first division to come back to Coventry in the second division.
Blimey, that was a bit of a coup for us, wasn't it?
Yeah, his heart was at Highfield Road, no question. Yeah. So poor old Billy was sacked again, and he left the game effectively. He became a school teacher. I believe he was ultimately he became headmaster at Binley Park School.
Oh, but he coached locally though, didn't he? Local clubs.
He did part-time manager of non-league clubs. He was at Rugby Town and Stafford Rangers. And then 1955, he came back to Coventry to coach the juniors. By this time, Storer had moved on, and Jesse Carver would have been the manager. Yeah. So he came back to coach the youngsters. And 2 years later, when Harry Warren was sacked, Billy was invited to be manager again.
It's pretty much the first manager my dad remembered, because obviously he came to Italy from Italy in 1955, 56. So he would have been pretty much his first Coventry City manager.
Oh, did he come on the plane with Jesse Carver from Rome?
You never know. He might have done.
Yes.
That would have been funny, wouldn't it?
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, when he arrived back, this was the season before the reorganisation of the leagues, when Division 3 South and Division 3 North were merged, with the top half of each division going into the new third division, and the bottom half going into the new fourth division.
Yes, which means we have a unique place in football history, haven't we, of playing in every single division, whereas nobody else has, because we played in the North, didn't we, for one season?
We did. Yeah, that was back in the 20s.
Yeah.
So that season was vital. You know, the directors were very, very anxious to finish in the top half, so they would end up in the third division, not the fourth division, because they'd never been in. Well, obviously the fourth division was just being formed. So when he arrived, I think after about 10 or 12 games, they were 22nd out of 24 teams.
Ooh.
Had a really bad start, and he was unable to stop the rot. The side finished in the bottom half. At one stage, they were in the bottom two of that division. They managed to, I can't remember where they finished in the end, maybe about 16th, but they were a very, very poor team, probably one of the poorest teams in the club's history.
And there's a huge stigma, wasn't there, really? Because you're basically in the bottom division, whereas before, you were like equally in the third division kind of thing, weren't you?
Yes.
But now you had an extra. It felt like an extra hurdle to get over to get into the second division.
Yes. Yes.
So
That's very, very true. But having said that, the reorganization meant that the four came up from Division 4 and 2 went up from Division 3, whereas previously only 1 out of Division 3 South and 1 out of Division 3 North got promoted. So there was a bigger incentive to play for.
Yeah,
it was a stigma, and fortunately, Billy led them to promotion at the first attempt.
this is right.
They finished second. Ironically, they finished second to his old team, Port Vale. And he was given a bit more leeway in the transfer market, and he brought in some quite good players like Arthur Lightning, Paddy Ryan.
I love that name, Arthur Lightning. He should be a winger with a name like that, though, shouldn't he?
Yes. Ronnie Farmer arrived from Forest along with Lightning. Ray Straw, a good striker, came in. George Stewart, another very good striker. So Billy basically rebuilt the squad. The only two who survived from the old team were George Curtis and Mick Kearns. They were the ones that survived and went on, obviously, for a lot longer. It was a good season, that Division 4 promotion. They scored 84 goals. They only lost once at home.
Oh,
wouldn't we love a home record like that?
Oh, most certainly, yeah.
Yeah. 16 home wins, I think there were.
Yeah, that's what you need. That's what you need to go up.
Yeah, you do. You do.
At
I've
least.
been saying that forever.
Yeah.
Look at last season, the top 6 in the championship all won 15 or more games.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah,
You just
we won 9.
Yeah, it's not good enough.
No.
Right.
So a bit of success for the Bantams, promotion. And following season, 59-60, back in the third division, they almost went straight through the third division. Had a great season. They were rarely out of the top 6. And with 6 games left, they were in third place with a game in hand, which would have taken them to second if they'd won. And they just ran out of steam. They only won one of the last 6 games. They lost twice to Grimsby over Easter and finished 5th.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, we've been known. I mean, people like talk about this season about slow starters. Throughout my youth, I always used to hear the expression, "Oh, we come down at Christmas like the decorations."
Yeah.
Is that statistically, is that correct, or is it just a thing us Cov fans say that we always had a good start and then we just tailed off? Would you say that's pretty much what used to happen?
In the pre-Robbins era, I think you can point to quite a few seasons, can't you? Remember the Mowbray season?
Yeah.
They were top in January, weren't they? And blew and it all went to pot. The Bobby Gould season, 83-4. They were 4th on the 1st of January. Ended up having to win their final game to stay up. So there are lots of examples, but there again, there's a few examples of when we had bad starts. Well, obviously the relegation season in 2016-17. The one 50 years ago that I'm writing about in the program, 74-75. We didn't win until game 9 or game 8 or 9.
Yeah.
And Gordon Milne was under a lot of pressure. And we managed to get a win in, as I say, game 8 or 9 against Luton at home. Scraped a 2-1 win. and then we had a really good patch and finished mid-table.
And of course, Chelsea or Tottenham got relegated with Luton and Carlisle.
That's correct, yeah.
And Arsenal were down there for a time as well.
They were.
That was a weird season where Carlisle won the first 3 games and then got relegated. And I think Everton supporters always said they would have won the league had Carlisle not done the double over them, which is incredible.
That's right.
Yeah, but we had a lousy program that season as well. It was one of the worst ones in the club history, I think.
Oh, it was. It was awful, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. They and if you look at the cover, there is some similarities with that John Elvin cover, isn't there? But you opened it and there was just nothing in there.
Really poor. We'd gone from the best in almost the world to the worst. I think it was terrible.
We did. It was a gradual slide, wasn't it?
Yeah, we've digressed again. Sorry about that, Jim.
Yeah, well, it's nice to have these tangential digressions. So as I said, 59-60, they finished 5th. A lot of expectation. Right, next season will be the season we'll go up to Division 2, and it was a real anticlimax. Again, a poor start. We were rarely above halfway. Gates started to fall. I think they were down to 10,000 by February, March time, and then down to about 8,000 by the end of the season. And strangely, it was with largely the same team as finished 5th the previous year. Mm-hmm. You still had the stalwarts: Curtis Kearns, Farmer, Brian Hill. They had Stuart Imlach on the left wing. From Luton, and then 61-2 again started exactly the same, real struggling start. Gates were down to 8,000 in October.
Wow.
And that's when Chairman Robbins decided enough was enough, and we had the Night of the Long Knives where Frith and his team were all sacked, and in came the bearded wonder, Jimmy Hill, untried as a manager.
Was he? I mean, the rumor was. I mean, was he already lined up for the job anyway?
He was lined up before the Kings Lynn game. Yeah,
before the Kings Lynn game.
Yeah.
What a gamble that was.
It was, yeah. It was, but the club was going nowhere. It had, in a season and a half, it had just gone backwards after the promising 2 seasons.
It all sounds familiar, Jim.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Yes. We can't have Gary Lineker.
Oh, don't. So Billy returned to teaching. And so that was November 61, he left City. He returned to teaching. And then in the summer of 63, Chelmsford City appointed him as manager. And that's the connection with David Selby. And Chelmsford then were quite a top non-league side. I think they were most seasons they applied for re-election or election to the Football League in the days when the Football League meeting had a vote with the bottom 4 teams of the Division 4 and numerous non-league sides who thought they were good enough to get in the league. Chelmsford never obviously won that vote, but they finished in, I think, Billy's second season. They finished second in the Southern League, which was no mean feat. They were a really strong non-league side.
The Southern League was strong. It wasn't. It was good quality football they were non-professionals, weren't they? Proper, not like you got now, where the National League is almost professional, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, and they also were able to pay quite good wages because they had breezed pretty good gates. The top Southern League sides, And Billy used his Coventry connections. He signed Stuart Imlach for Chelmsford. He signed Frank Austin, the sort of veteran Coventry City defender, and another Coventry player, Colin Holder, who'd been quite a dynamic young striker, but never really made the step up. Although he did, I saw Colin play at Lockheed. City sent him on loan to Lockheed for a season, or it might have been half a season, and he was pretty deadly in the box. So yeah, Billy went to Essex. I've got to say, I think he stayed. He was still teaching, and probably going down to Chelmsford on match days and having somebody take the midweek training down there. I would think, because as I said, he progressed to be a headmaster. Yeah. He retired from teaching in 1977, so he would have been 65 then. But he was scouting well into the 1980s from his Kenilworth home, and he passed away in 1996,
so
84.
Who was he scouting for, Jim? Was that just Jet for us, or Jet or other clubs?
I would doubt it was with Coventry. I would think, having been sacked twice by them, he wouldn't have a great love affair. Although his son John was a big Coventry City fan, and had some great memories of going to the games with his dad. And he knew all the players, knew George Curtis really well, and he was. It sounds strange, a football manager becoming a teacher, doesn't it? Yeah. And then a headmaster. But if you look at the guy, he does look a bit schoolmasterish, doesn't he?
Well, to be honest, they all did in those days. They all look about 20 years older than the players of today, that's for sure.
And anybody who had dealings with him, who I've spoken to over the years, said he was a real gentleman. You know, yeah.
He's got Louis.
There's none of the gruff Derbyshire of Harry Storer. He was a gentleman.
Obviously, if you're listening on a podcast, you can't see these images, but if you watch it back on YouTube, when it goes out on YouTube, you'll see the image of Billy Frith behind Jim. And I say he's got a haircut like Louis Binks. Yeah. Or Louis Binks has got his haircut. It's come back in, I think, that's a haircut.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to contact us, we've got a double header tonight, haven't we, Jim? We're going to talk about a bit about goalkeepers as well, aren't we? In a bit. But if you want to contact us and you want a subject to talk about, please do email us at jim@clarryborton@gmail.com, and it's on the bottom of the screen if you're watching it on YouTube. And any subject, we're free to talk about anything. The older the better.
Yeah, I wanted to say a few words actually at this stage. I was going to say that when we started this podcast, about 6 months ago, I guess.
Yeah.
We had no real objectives, did we, other than to have a little casual chat about the club's history. And I think now, we both become aware that we've got something pretty unique here. I think we're the only Coventry City podcast that promotes the club's history. And I think that's really become our objective, hasn't it?
Most definitely.
To make sure that the club's history, the players, the matches, the events, the managers are not forgotten. And I think for both of us, the club's history is a very important part of our lives. And we want to share it with our listeners.
Exactly that, Jim. And I'm getting people messaging me who are at least 10, 15, 20 years younger than me saying they love it, that they actually they listen to it. And I think it's great. I love listening about football history, but you can't beat your own history. And just because you haven't won millions of cups and trophies and won leagues, it doesn't mean your club hasn't got a lovely history and a heritage to talk about. Because as we were talking about earlier, it's all about the fans, and the history of the club belongs to the fans. We're all part of this one big club, and it's hard to stop loving your football club. It's and it's one of those. And I think if we can share stories of old, and if people want to talk about a certain part of their Coventry City history, we'd love to do that. Because it's different for everybody, isn't it? As it's proved with Pauline Hughes, who wanted to talk about Reg Matthews, and tonight as well. For some people, Coventry City means different things, doesn't it?
It does. It certainly does. And just to pick up on your point, I don't know who said it, but a football club, is nothing without its heritage.
Yeah.
When you look at the farce of MK Dons and Wimbledon, and even to the point of MK Dons trying to take Wimbledon's history.
Yeah.
And nobody will buy it, will they? Nobody will buy it. But I think all the feedback we've had has said how interesting the podcasts are. There's been very little mention of our broadcasting skills. but I think we both want to continue to make them interesting and to have some fun. So please tell your friends about the podcast and keep on listening and watching us.
And we've got some modern history coming up, hopefully in the next month or so, which will be good as well, with some very, very interesting guests, which will be brilliant.
Yes. So my column this week was about clean sheets, goalkeepers and their clean sheets, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
They're interesting because there's some names here. There's a couple I'll have to say I don't really recognise, but the majority I do. So, well, you talk us through it, Jim.
Well, I think what sparked it was Ben Wilson getting a clean sheet against Blackburn, which is our first in the league this season. But that was to add to the two he's got in the League Cup. At Bristol and at home to Oxford. That's his third clean sheet in 5 starts?
Yeah.
6 starts now. Yeah.
So do you think he's a good keeper or a lucky keeper? And by that I mean, because he's not played many games and he's almost kept a clean sheet in half the matches, which is incredible in itself.
Well, looking at his record, it's 115 games and 45 clean sheets.
Yeah, so it's
the highest percentage of any Coventry City goalkeeper ever.
Yeah, so but I would not rank him anywhere near our top keepers.
No.
No, exactly. So it's a strange one, isn't it? I mean, go through the list then, and we'll have a brief chat about all of them, I suppose. Okay,
yeah. So from I've done the top 12 by number of clean sheets, and we've got at 11th equal. We've got 2 modern keepers, well, relatively modern. Magnus Hedman, 33 clean sheets, and Kieran Westwood, 33 clean sheets.
Both internationals as well. At some point.
Internationals, yeah, and both. I like Westwood. I think he was a very good keeper in the Championship. Magnus had his off days, didn't he?
Yeah, I always thought Magnus was great with long shots, but his positioning I didn't like when he used to one-on-ones. I just used to think whoever went through was going to score, but his shot stopping from a distance was I mean, I know him and Oggy were challenging at one point, and that's where I think he had the edge on Oggy, but then Oggy was a lot braver. He was very good at coming out, was Oggy.
I do remember a game in the relegation season, home to Everton, where Magnus had a stinker. He didn't come for crosses. So up to number 10, we've got Lee Burge, 34 clean sheets. Not quite as good an average as Headman or Westwood, but still very tidy.
Yeah,
very tidy.
Hot and cold keeper, wasn't he, Lee? He was another one, a bit vulnerable. I think it's interesting. I wonder, like modern goalkeepers, they all seem vulnerable when it comes to balls in the air, which is ridiculous.
Yes. Do you remember the West Bromwich Albion goalkeeper called Tony Godden?
Oh yes, yeah.
His nickname was Dracula. He hated crosses.
I don't remember him being very tall either.
No, I don't think he was.
Must have been the curly blonde hair. Maybe that made him look short.
So number 9 is your favourite name, Arthur Lightning.
That's great. I love it.
39 clean sheets. Number 8 is a guy from the 30s, Horace Pearson, 40 clean sheets with a 32% record. Now that's impressive because we shipped a lot of goals. We scored a lot of goals in the early 30s, but we also let in a lot. So that's not bad at all. In fact, his 32% clean sheets is only bettered by Wilson, Ben Wilson and Bill Morgan. So it's not bad.
Yeah, and that's an era when there was a lot of goals.
Yeah.
There weren't many clean sheets.
No. So number 7, Les Seeley, 43 clean sheets in 180 games.
Oh, he used to annoy me, Les Seeley.
He annoyed everybody, I think.
I still remember that game when they'd beat us in 86, 87 season. He was doing cartwheels down the pitch, playing for Luton.
Yeah.
He'd be getting pelters from the West End all game, and he was doing all these cartwheels down. Or he must have gone for he did cut about 10 cartwheels in a row down the pitch. I mean, they were rubbish cartwheels, but they're still cartwheels.
Yeah.
He just, Jim Blythe for me, not Les Seeley.
Yeah, I don't know. I think in retrospect, I prefer Seeley.
He is funny, isn't it?
Yeah. So up to number 6, Ben Wilson. He's got 45 now in 115 games. Number 5, another one from the 1920s, Jerry Best, a tiny goalkeeper. He was about 5'8". But he's got 52 clean sheets in 236 games, which isn't a great percentage, but we weren't a very good team in the 1920s, so he did okay.
Yeah,
he did okay. Number 4, Bill Morgan, 54 in 160. That's the second best percentage, 34%. And you've got to remember that Bill played behind a very strong defence. When we got promotion in 36, Harry Storer went for a strong defence rather than all-out attacking, which he'd done in the 3rd division. Bill was the custodian, well, almost up to the war. Right up to the war, in fact. Number 3, Alf Wood, 64 clean sheets, 246 games. Alf didn't miss a game, I think 5 seasons after the war.
That's astonishing, isn't it?
Yeah. It took Oggy a long time to break his record. Up to number 2, Bill Glazier, 95 clean sheets. Obviously, he played over 400 games, so his percentage was 24%. And of course, he played, a lot of his games were in the early years in the 1st division when we were, struggling to stay up. And obviously, number 1, Steve Ogrizovic, Oggy, 175 clean sheets in 601 games. That's a 29% clean sheet, which is pretty impressive. He
came to the 87 reunion what we had with the Leamington Warwick Supporters Club just last week. And what strikes me with Steve is that he's a big bloke. He looks huge, and he's still, compared to what you see now, in stature as well. He just looks like an imposing figure as a goalkeeper. But what was interesting was he said his favourite all-time player was Ray Clements, because obviously he was at Liverpool with Ray.
Yeah.
And I mean, I remember going to the Euros in 1980, and Ray Clements was in goal for England, and he was for about, with him and Shilton, but he predominantly was the keeper for about 10 years. And what struck me was he the best English keeper? Because he was sat behind a team, I think in one season only let 19 goals in all season, Liverpool, where they just didn't let any goals in because they're so strong. But England had the likes of the two Parks, who played for Wolves and QPR and West Ham, Mervyn Day, Joe Corrigan. Of course, we got our own keepers with Glazer and then Seeley. And I mean, there's just loads of good goalkeepers. And I just wondered how good, I mean, even Shilton, I mean, the best ever was Banks, but these players all played behind defences that creaked a lot and had to do a lot of saving, basically. The goalkeepers were always in action. You could see how good they were. I just wondered what Clements would have been like had he been in a different team, because he was a good goalkeeper, but as we saw when we played him in the FA Cup final, he wasn't that great on that day, was he?
No.
I don't know what you think. I mean,
well, my personal preference was always for Shilton. I thought Shilton was a better goalkeeper. I don't know, Clement. You're right. Clements played behind, the best defence of the 70s. All throughout that era, they were the best defence, weren't they?
Yeah.
Shilton, he played in the Leicester team, which struggled. He got relegated with Leicester. He got relegated later with Stoke in 77. And then, of course, he had the perfect move to Forest.
Yeah.
And you've got to say he was a major part in their success.
Without a doubt. I mean, I think did Banks get relegated with Leicester in the 60s?
No.
Had he gone by? Was that Shilton then, was it? Because Shilton took over from Banks, didn't he?
Yes, he did, yeah. Yes, in 69, Shilton was the goalkeeper, yeah. So he was only 19. Yeah, they sold Banks to Stoke in 67, and Shilton was only 18. And they had so much confidence in Shilton, they sold Banks.
Yeah, because they think with Stoke City, had Banks not had the car accident, the chances are they probably could have won the league because of him, basically. Gordon Banks, of course. The other keeper I didn't mention was the old Leicester keeper, Jim Montgomery, who I'm still astonished that he played against us in 1963 in that famous cup match, and he had the most magnificent game in the 1973 cup final. I hadn't realised how long it'd been going. I mean, it's a massive.
Along with Glazier and Bonetti, they were, and Alex Stepney probably, they were the four, if you like, pretenders to the Banks. The Banks era of goalkeeping. Jim Montgomery was a very good goalkeeper.
He was, wasn't he?
Yeah, and that save, the double save against Lorimer in the final in 73, that's it's memorable, isn't it?
Yeah, and also Jim Montgomery was on the bench for Forest in one of the European Cup finals. So he's got a European Cup medal, along with Steve Ogrizovic, who will tell you, because people say, of course, he's got a European Cup winners medal, and he'll go, I've got two.
Of course, that there's a Peter Shilton connection with Coventry.
Oh, go on.
He played for us.
Oh, yes, sorry, yes. I thought it was something else. I think he
played for us. He played in a friendly in Ireland against a team called Finn Harps. I think he only played 45 minutes. He was 43 at the time, I think. And then he played half a game in a friendly at St Albans. a couple of weeks later.
And I'm sure David Bennett broke his leg on his head, didn't he? I think he broke his shin. He went in for a ball with him. I think
he did.
And he was out for a while. I think that pretty much, I wouldn't say ended his time at Coventry, but he never really recovered from that, Dave Bennett, I don't think.
No, you're right. You're right. He did come back, but he wasn't. He'd lost a bit of pace, I think.
Yeah, but yeah, that was a good night the other night with the 87 crowd. Yeah. So there's the list then. So basically, does that mean Ben Wilson, according to the list, tops the list, but doesn't mean he's the best? It's funny, isn't it?
He tops the percentage list, yeah. But yes, I don't think he's the best. And of course, he didn't. Did he make a faux pas on Saturday for that first goal?
Yeah, I think he just didn't expect a shot. I think that's what it was. And I think he got caught completely flat-footed, wasn't ready for it. Because when it went in, we're trying to work out how it went in. We had a really good view of that. And we're sort of thinking, how's that gone in? But
went in on his near post, didn't it?
Yeah. And it was, we couldn't see how it could have gone in, from there, to be honest. So, yes, I suppose that is one against his copybook, isn't it? And yet again, no clean sheets. So, yes. So this current run, then, briefly, then, before we go.
Okay.
Do you think we'll turn it round?
Yes. I keep on reminding people that last season we were 22nd in the table at the end of November. And by the end of January, we were 6th.
I'd love to see
we had a stinking start last year, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
We lost those 4 games in a row in October, and then we lost at Preston, and he dropped Wilson.
Yeah,
he dropped Fads, didn't he?
Yeah,
Fads gave away the penalty.
He made changes, didn't he? He sort of changed the team at half time, didn't he? He did something. He changed the formation and everything.
And it worked, didn't it?
Yeah, because we were walking to the game midweek, to the Blackburn game, and I said to my son, like, we obviously just played Leeds. I says, but these 3 games, would you've taken a point in each game and you'd have thought, oh, we've stopped the rot. Okay, it's only 3 points, but we've not lost. Would you take a win tonight after you've lost to Leeds, but you lose Saturday, but you've still got 3 points? Or would you take 2 draws after a loss? And you kind of think a win and a loss is better, isn't it? Because you've got an extra point.
Yeah.
It's strange with this 3 points for a win, isn't it? What's good and bad, I mean, 3 draws would have probably been better in the end, just to say we've not lost a game. But
you're right. It's points you need, not necessarily not draws. Really, you want wins or losses.
Yeah, and I'll take a win and a loss all the time now for the next 10 games, because at least you're getting 3 points on the board every other game.
Yeah.
Because we're not averaging anywhere near that. In fact, I think in the last 30 matches, league games, we're letting 45 goals, which isn't a great stat either.
No, it isn't. And of course, we lost a big record on Saturday. Sheffield Wednesday hadn't won in Coventry since 1995.
Yeah.
15 games.
Yeah, I mentioned that to my lad as well, because I said Blackburn had got a rotten record at Highfield Road in Coventry.
Yeah.
So we've got another team on Saturday. If you're going to play 2 teams who historically haven't done well, these are perfect. But hopefully we can do that in Preston.
Fingers crossed. Do you think it'll happen?
If it does, we're going up, Jim.
Yeah. Well, they have the biter is out, isn't he, for Preston?
Yeah, and they've lost the other striker as well. He's out injured. So
who? Reese.
I think they've lost another striker. So the thing is that guy was obviously they've suspended him. He scored 2 goals against Watford. Yeah. So he should have been suspended straight away, I think. I mean, it should be done quicker.
Was he the guy who got that hat trick in about 8 minutes last season?
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah. The other frightening stat from Saturday is that Sheffield Wednesday team, none of them cost a transfer fee.
Right.
So, what did our team cost?
Well, I think in the last 2 years we're the third or fourth biggest spenders. So that for not for us, but for the coaching staff and the management team. It's their job to sort out. We can just go along and pay our money and get behind the team. That's all we can do, Jim.
Absolutely, yeah, and try and be positive about it.
Yeah, and I always believe if you keep singing the manager's name, he's safe. So I suggest we keep singing his name.
Yeah.
Right. So I've enjoyed tonight. I've really enjoyed tonight. It's
excellent.
We have no idea what we're going to be talking about next week, but I'm sure something will come up.
Yes. Okay.
Right. I think we'll call it a night.
Yes.
I'll be back with you next week.
Yeah. Good night, Claudio.
Good night.
Radio Company business. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. Lovely.